Hi everyone, I am Bhavani and thank you for joining me today. This presentation is part of our Global Economy subject ECO 4133. Our focus today is Brazil, one of the most important emerging economies in the world. We will explore Brazil's economic structure, target profile, challenges, consider what lies ahead for Brazil in the next few years. Let's talk about the basic introduction to Brazil. Okay, Brazil is the biggest country in South America, not just in size but also in population and economy. With over 212 million people, it has a large and active market which gives it a big advantage. In 2024, Brazil's economy is worth about 2.08 trillion, that put it among to top 10 to 15 economies in the world. Some of the Brazil's key industry include five sectors, which is agriculture, mining, manufacturing, services. Agriculture is Brazil's the world's largest exporter of soybeans and coffee. Mining, it has a lot of natural resources like ore, bauxite, and gold. Manufacturing, it produces things like cars, airplanes, and processed foods. Services is banking, tourism, and retail are growing fast. When it comes to trade, China is Brazil's biggest trade partner, mainly buying soy and iron ore. The USA imports things like machinery and oil. Argentina and the European Union also buy a lot, especially cars, machines, plastics, and steels. Actually, Brazil play an important role in both South America and the world. Its natural resources and large population give it a lot of long-term potential. But Brazil also face some big economic and structural challenges, which we will talk about next. And you know something, you might not realize it, but you probably already have something from Brazil in your house. Maybe your coffee or sugar came from there. Next is economic challenges. Even with a strong economy and natural resources, Brazil faces some big challenges that hold it back from reaching its full potential. This is the five main economic challenges faced by the Brazil. First, inflation and economy instability. Brazil has struggled with inflation for decades, while it's more stable today than in the past. Prices still rise quickly at times. This makes it harder for families to afford buying goods, and it's increased uncertainty for businesses planning long-term investment. Second, income inequality and poverty. Brazil is one of the most unequal countries in the world. While some regions, especially South and Southeast, are fairly developed, many people in the North and Northeast live in deep poverty. This gap between rich and poor affects stability and limit economic growth. Third point is environmental concern and deforestation. The Amazon rainforest is a critical part of the global climate system, but it's being cleared at an alarming rate, mostly for cattle ranching and agriculture. This is not only impact the environmental, but also damage Brazil's international reputation, especially with countries like those in the European Union care deeply about sustainability when choosing trade partners. Fourth point is dependence on commodities. Brazil's economy relies heavily on export like soybean, iron ore, and oil. The problem is these are all tied to global prices. When demands drop or prices fall, Brazil's economy takes a hit. This makes it vulnerable and less stable than more diversified economies. Five, Number five is political uncertainty. Corruption scandals like the massive Operation Car Wash have shaken trust in political leaders and institutions. While some reforms have been made, These scandals create long-lasting effect, including investors' hesitation and public frustrations. So, while Brazil has a lot going for it, these challenges need to be addressed to unlock its full economic potential. In the next slide, we will explore how Brazil is trying to overcome some of these issues and what the future might look like. Let's go for the next slide. Now let's connect Brazil's economy to a key idea in trade theory, which is comparative advantage. So, what is that exactly? Comparative advantage is when a country can produce certain goods more efficiently than others. Not necessarily better at everything, but better at some things compared with to the rest of the world. In Brazil's case, it has a clear comparative advantage in agricultural and natural resources. Thanks to its fertile soil, tropical climates, and massive land area, Brazil is one of the world's top exporters of soybeans, beef, iron ore, coffee, and sugar. These products are not just important for Brazil, they are essential to the global supply chain. For example, like China depends heavily on Brazilian soy and iron ore to feed livestock and fuel its construction industry. One major advantage Brazil has is year-round growing season. Many countries, even though Malaysia can only harvest crops once a year, but Brazil can often do 2 or even 3 hours. That's a big productivity boost. On the mining side, Brazil has a huge reserve of iron ore, which is critical for making steel. That's another area where Brazil stands out. But here's the catch. This strength also creates risk because Brazil relies so heavily on exporting raw goods, it's very sensitive to global price swings. If demand drops or price falls, like in a trade slowdown or a crop surplus, Brazil's economy feel its hurt. That's why economy says Brazil needs to diversify. Right now, it's exporting a lot of raw materials, but turning those into higher value products like processed food, finished metals, or industrial machinery would create more jobs, increase income, and protect the economy from global ups and downs. So, to sum it up, Brazil's comparative advantage give it a strong role in the global trade, but for a long-term success, Brazil need to build on that strength by moving up the value chain and making the most of its resources. Next, international trade policies. Brazil is actually very active in international trade, but its trade policy are a bit of a balancing act. On end, Brazil's promote free trade, especially when it comes to the natural resources and agriculture sector. It's a member of Mercosur, a South American trade bloc that include Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. The goal is to encourage regional cooperation and lower trade barrier between members. Brazil also has strong trade relationship with major global players like China and the European Union. In sectors like farming and mining, Brazil pushes for export-led growth, in other words, producing for the global market. But on the other side, Brazil is protectionist in some key areas, especially in industrial goods. The government imposed a high tariff on imported products like electronics, cars, machinery, to shield local companies from foreign competition. While this can help domestic industry survive, it also has downsides. For example, imported products often end up being cheaper and higher equality than what's made locally. A good example, like if buying a smartphone made abroad might be less expensive than getting one made in Brazil due to technology gaps and high production cost. This mix of policy creates a dual economy. Uh, On side, Brazil is globally competitive in raw materials like soy, beef, and iron. On the other side, it struggles with high cost and low competitiveness in advanced manufacturing and technology industries. In the long run, Brazil faces a key challenges: how to stay open to trade while building stronger, more competitive industry at home. Finding the balance will be crucial for its economic future. Our next slide is what's next for Brazil when it comes to sustainable economic development. Let's explore where the country stands today, its key strength, risk, and what the future might look like. For strengths, Brazil has a large and growing workforce. Brazil has a young population, which means a strong labor force and that can power growth across industries, from farming to manufacturing to services, even emerging technology services. Second point is natural resource wealth. Brazil is rich in iron ore, oil, and has some of the most fertile agricultural land in the world. This gives it a strong competitive edge in global market for food, fuel, and minerals. Third point is global trade demands. With the world's population growing and food insecurity rising, countries are relying more on Brazil for essential like soybeans, beef, and sugars. Plus, as the world move as the world toward green energy, demand for Brazil's mineral used in batteries and renewable technology is expected to rise. The risks are political instability. Brazil's political environment can be unpredictable. Frequent leadership changes and past corruption scandals create uncertainty, which can scare off investors and slow down long-term reforms. Second point is environmental concern. The rapid deforestation of Amazon is a major global concern. It affects biodiversity, contributes to climate changes, and damages Brazil's trade relationship, especially with demand stronger environmental protection from their trade partners. Third point is over reliance on commodities. As we talked before, depending too much on raw exports like soy, iron ore makes Brazil vulnerable. These prices are set by the global market and can swing up and down suddenly, leaving the economy exposed to downturns. Number four is infrastructure and education gaps. In many parts of Brazil, roads, ports, and digital networks are outdated or lacking. Education is also uneven, especially in poor regions, which make it hard for workforce to compete in high-tech and service industries. How about the prediction of the Brazil? How about the prediction? Brazil is well positioned for growth, especially through trade. But to make that growth sustainable and resilient, it needs to take a few key steps like diversify the economy, invest in education and innovation, protect the environment. Brazil must have beyond Brazil must move beyond raw exports and build up industry like manufacturing, tech, and renewable energy. This creates more jobs and boosts income stability. The stronger focus on education and workforce training will prepare Brazilians for jobs in the global digital economy. Innovation centers and tech parks are starting to grow, but they need to more supports from Brazil. Protect the environmental. Brazil can't afford to ignore its environmental responsibility. Stronger environmental laws, sustainable farming, and responsible mining are crucial, not just for the planet, but for the keeping trade relationship strong. If Brazil can balance growth with environmental protections and invest in its people and industries. It has the potential to become not just a global export leader, but also a standout example of innovation and sustainability among developing economies. To summarize today's presentation, Brazil is a major global player with rich natural resources, a large population, and strong trade links, especially in agriculture and mining sectors. Its strength lies in its comparative advantage in natural goods, but heavy reliance on raw exports make it vulnerable to global price changes. Internally, Brazil faced key challenges like income inequality, political instability, and environmental damage, especially deforestation in the Amazon. Trade policies are a mix of protectionism and openness. High tariff protect local industries while exports drive growth. For sustainable long-term growth, Brazil must diversify its economy, invest in education and infrastructure, strengthen environmental protection. In short, Brazil has the potential to thrive globally if it commits to smart, sustainable, and inclusive development. That's all for today. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope this presentation gave you a clear picture of Brazil's economy landscape. Thank you.